I was machine gunner on a helicopter, and the problem with the helicopters is that when things go bad, they go bad really, really quick. I got in a fight with a prisoner over the pilot's pistol. They weren't properly tied up. Their hands were tied in front of them instead of behind them. So when I got him on the helicopter and we took off because we were getting shot at, he pushed his blindfold up. And then he saw the pilot's pistol, which I had told him that morning, hours before, when we first got on that plane. I said, "Sir, you need to move your pistol." And he told me that I could go have sex with my mother, and it was none of my business. I heard him screaming in my headset, "I'm trying to shoot the machine gun." And I turned to look, and I saw the prisoner going for the pistol. I unhooked and jumped in, grabbed the prisoner and the pistol at the same time, and we're wrestling. And the pilot decided that he needed to solve this problem real quick. And he's whipping it from side to side, trying to dump us both out, right? Well, I got the pistol. The prisoner went out the one doorway. And then because of the way the thing was whipping around, I went out the other doorway with the pistol. And there was this moment, you know why they always say just before you die in a traumatic fashion, your whole life flashes before your eyes, right? I didn't think that was a thing. That's actually a thing. I don't know how it works. But I was suspended in space, Donald, for it's probably a millisecond, right? But it was like time just stopped. And I know I'm going to die, right? But in this situation, the other gunner saw what was happening and he hit me. He was trying to grab me. He didn't grab me, but he hit me. And I felt this wicked pain. And then I opened my eyes and I realized I was under the helicopter and the letters weren't getting smaller because I'm on the skid. I'm on the skid underneath the helicopter, yeah. That's how I survived. I wouldn't be here. It was really hard to get back in that helicopter, but that moment was unbelievable. Yeah, it was like my whole life flashed before my eyes in that instant.
Hello, my dear friends. I'm Donald Lee, and this is Expressing and Revealing Your Truth with Donald Lee. It's a podcast in which I help you understand the truth about who you really are and how you can express and reveal that truth in the world. To do that, I interview people who have had transformational spiritual experiences, the type of experiences that many of us wish we had but never do. Yet, by learning from my guests' experiences and the wisdom they've gained from those experiences, all of us can glimpse a bigger vision of who we really are and how we can live our lives more fully, more peacefully, more lovingly. Be sure to download my free mini ebook containing 5 of the 50 parables from my popular book, The Band Director's Lessons About Life. These little parables are short, easy to read, inspiring, and also help you to learn more about who you really are. There's a link in the show notes to get your free ebook. In this episode, I interview Rand Timmerman. Rand is a combat veteran of the Vietnam War. His story is one of great struggles, of rejecting God for many years, of descent into alcoholism, and of finally healing and developing an understanding of the presence of God in his life. A recent part of his healing journey was hiking the whole 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail at 72 years of age. He wrote a book about this incredible journey called A Spiritual Passage. Rand now helps other people to overcome the kinds of challenges that he has overcome in his own life. I'm sure you will enjoy this wonderful conversation with Rand Timmerman. Hello again, my dear friends. We're here today with Rand Timmerman. Now, Rand has a fascinating story of struggle and difficulties and eventual spiritual unfoldment. So let's jump in and hear this story from Rand Timmerman. Welcome, Rand. Great to see you.
Thank you, Donald. Great to be here.
Okay, where do you want to start out with your Vietnam experience, or where would you like to begin, Rand?
Sure. I grew up in a real rural area up in upstate New York, more cows than people. And around 5 years old, I became aware. You know how you come aware? And I looked around, I thought, "We're screwed." Uh, my dad and my uncles were all veterans, World War II. My dad was a Mustang pilot. I remember my dad standing there on his crutches, and we had a Christmas tree. I'm 5 years old. My brother's 4. My little sister's 3, and she's crying her eyes out because the only present under the tree was a pedal wagon that my dad had got from the dump and repainted it to make it look new. And she wanted a doll. And what I didn't know was that my dad, when he came back from the war, he got polio. He was in an
Oh,
iron lung for 8 months, in the hospital for a year, ended up paralyzed from the waist down. But, he was a very hardworking man, and he was the kinda guy was like, deal with it and cope, figure out
yeah.
ways to make things happen, and, he, he was a very hardworking man. So, I had no idea what I was gonna be when I was gonna grow up, and I was the first person in my family to go to college. At the same time, my younger brother, Ron, when he graduated a year after me, he went into the Army, and he went right to Vietnam. So, I'm in college
Yeah,
when
because I was what year would that be, Rand?
I would have been 1965. I graduated 64, he graduated 65. So I'd already been in college for about a year. He went to Vietnam. We were very poor. I had a huge
Right.
resentment against poverty. You know, I got drunk the first time at 13 years old. I'm wearing clothes with patches on them, shoes with holes in the bottom, and I don't have very good self-esteem at all. And then I drank that very first time. Alcoholism was one of my transformations, good and bad, right?
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
heading into that a little tiny bit. And that first time I drank it, it was unbelievable. I was like transformed into Clint Eastwood. I don't know if you know who he is, the old movie
Oh, of
star, but
course.
yeah,
Oh, of
I
course
felt
we
like
know Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, instead of being 5'8" with a face covered with acne, I'm 6'4" and I'm a movie star, good looking, funny, happy, sexy. I mean, everything I ever wanted to be. And the guy I was with, my friend, we were both same size. He weighed 200 pounds. I weighed 100. I swear I drank more of the Jim Beam than he did. And the next day,
So
I
you were
didn't.
6 foot. You were 6'4" and 100 pounds.
No, no, no. Clint Eastwood was 6'4". I'm 5'8".
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about how I felt transformed, physically in every way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And David weighed 200 pounds, and he was 5'8". So you can imagine. I weigh 100 pounds. He weighs 200. But I swear I drank. He died of cirrhosis of the liver about 30 years ago. I don't know. The first time I drank, Donald, I knew it was going to be a problem. I just liked it way so much. But I went upstairs to tell my dad, and I stood way back because you never knew. My dad, I think because of his hardships, he didn't have much patience, and
Right.
uh, and he could not stand emotional stress, so he would just react and get it over with, right? But this
Yeah.
time it was weird. He just said, "Well, Butch, don't do that again," and David's in the hospital, and that's when I knew for sure it affected me differently. I didn't get sick. I didn't feel great, but I mean, I didn't get sick, and he went in the hospital. So I made a decision at that
This
point.
was your buddy you were drinking with.
Yeah, he died of cirrhosis of the liver about 30 years ago. So
Wow.
what I'm saying is, I don't know that David was an alcoholic. I kind of think he probably wasn't, but it affected him way different than it did me.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a problem, but not till much later. Then for a while it was medicine from the trauma of the war. So I'm in college, but I don't know what the hell I want to be when I grow up, right? I have no clue. I kept changing my major. Third semester, I changed it to psychology because I knew it was a nut job. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to be. I'm working as a janitor every day from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning, right? So I have money to live on. And I was a pin setter in a bowling alley. This is before the automatic pin setters. And I'm selling
Right.
Amway on the weekends. And I have no money. So
Yeah.
I got drunk I didn't get drunk very often, but I did occasionally. And I got drunk one night. And the next morning, when the tavern owner came back, I'm on the pool table. And he comes in turns the radio on, and they're talking about the 1st Marine Division being in Vietnam. And he never said a word to me. I got off the pool table, looked at him, walked out the door, and a month later, I'm in the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York, taking the oath to serve my country and defend it against enemies, foreign and domestic. And 9 months later, I'm with the 1st Marine Division in Vietnam, thinking, I think I might have made a mistake. A big mistake. And so Ronnie was
The stupid things we do when we're young, right? I mean,
yeah.
yeah, in a moment of bravado, yeah, I'll go fight those little guys. Yeah, we're gonna stand up for America, and then you get there and
Yeah.
you think, what the hell have I done?
Yeah. That bartender came in and he turned the radio on, and it was talking about the 1st Marine Division being in Vietnam in body count. And honest to God, 9 months later, I'm in that division in Vietnam.
Right.
And for a while there, I wasn't sure how it was all going to work out. I ended up being a machine gunner on a helicopter for a little bit. And they made me what they called a Mustang lieutenant, so I'm an enlisted man. You have 2 types of veterans, right? You have enlisted men, and then you have the officers.
Right.
And they don't mix normally. But in Vietnam, 2nd lieutenants, which is the lowest rank of officers, didn't do well because they're out there, trying to lead and all that kind of stuff. So they made me
Yeah,
one.
yeah. They're leading their men into battle, right? So they're kind of on the vanguard. So a second lieutenant would be what? Have like a dozen men, maybe?
No. Usually they're in charge of a platoon, which would be
Which is how many men?
well, it's supposed to be 48 men. There's usually 4 platoons in a company. A company is usually led by a captain or a 1st lieutenant. So a lieutenant normally is in charge of it's supposed to be 48 men. In Vietnam, we were never at 48 men. We could be 30, 35. I mean, it just changed all the time.
Right.
The mortality rate was really pretty high. And it was a tough time for sure. But they made me a 2nd lieutenant the last couple of months. And then this colonel came up. I hadn't seen a colonel like forever, right? And came up to me and said, "You're getting out. You're a corporal again because you're going back stateside. So, and you're going to get out in a couple of months. Or I'm recommending you go to OCS, Officer Candidate School, and you can be a real officer. Nobody can take it away from you." So I ended up going to OCS. I actually got promoted to sergeant in OCS, Officer Candidate School. But I ended up being a real live 2nd lieutenant. I found out a few years ago at my 50th anniversary, I was probably the last real 2nd lieutenant without a college education.
Really?
After
Okay.
that, you had to have a college education. And then I found out I was probably the only Marine Corps JAG officer without a college education. That was a total one-off. So, I had these Forrest Gumpy type things happen in my life, with the butterfly effect. I don't know if you remember that in the movie. Butterfly flaps its wings and 3 days later it's turned into a tornado type of thing. I don't know if that's a good
Yeah,
analogy or
yeah,
not, but
yeah.
anyway, I kind of lived that way. And for a while there, it seemed like. So I went to did all the officer stuff, decided to go in the air wing, and when I got there, I ran into an old buddy who had been enlisted and was now a captain, and he sent me off to the Naval Justice School. So I show up at this school. I'm a 2nd lieutenant. The other 99 guys are all captains, Navy and Marine Corps. They've all got college degrees and law degrees. This is how I became a lawyer. That's why I'm getting into this a little bit, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
another
But
butterfly thing. How did this
yeah.
happen?
But they didn't have combat experience. You did.
Yeah, but I was a one-off too. They were looking at me like, "What the hell's he doing here? This kid doesn't know
Like,
anything,
how
right?"
did this guy sneak in, right?
Well, they've got they got their 7 years of college, so they're all 26, 27 years old. I'm 20, 21, I think at that point, 20. And they're looking at me. I'm a 2nd lieutenant. "What the hell are you doing here? You don't know anything." I said, "I don't know. They said I could come, so here I am." So 20 of us rented a mansion in Rhode Island because it was in the off season and we all had our own room in this mansion right on the Atlantic Ocean. And these guys want to party every night. And of course I have that inclination, but I thought for some reason I said, you know what, I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm just going to focus on this and see what happens. And I would party with them a little bit on the weekends. And stuff. I still don't have any money. So, but, I ended up being the class honor man. I got the highest scores. Pissed them
Good
all
for
off.
you.
Donald pissed them all. Like, what the hell? What's this?
Because you were studying and they were drinking.
Yeah, basically. And
So
I
it's
already knew. I
amazing.
mean, you did get some training as a enlisted man in the Uniform Code of Military. So I had a basic knowledge to begin with.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is I also had a skill set. I had a brain that worked pretty good when it wasn't, loaded down with liquor. And I was a fighter. I mean, I'm tenacious as all get out, which you have to be if you're going to hike the Appalachian Trail at 72. You got to be very
Yeah.
tenacious,
Yeah.
almost mentally ill tenacious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, now they say, the line between genius and insanity is so fine as to be almost invisible.
Good point, Dom. Yeah, one night we were exhausted. This is during the hike. And honest to God, one night we're sitting there. My brother goes, "Hey, bro, there's a lot of weird people out here." And I go, "Yeah, Ron, we're all weird people." And he goes, "No, Rand, you and I are normal. We're not weird people." I said, "No, we're all weird people. Normal people don't do this. They don't hike 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 11 miles a day over the mountains, living off the land up practically. They don't do it. It's not normal." He said, "Yeah, you're probably right." So anyway, when I went back to 1st Marine Air Wing after that school, they made me a defense attorney. And I got a couple guys acquitted, which is unheard of. And you're not a jury of your peer in the military. There's usually the jury's a colonel, a major, a captain, maybe another lieutenant, and it's usually a sergeant major, which is the highest enlisted rank. So you're not dealing with a regular jury. And I remember the guy was accused of sleeping on watch, which in Marine Corps is they used to shoot him back in the Civil War if you did that. And it's taken very seriously in the Marine Corps. And so it was, that would be a Fort Leavenworth, 2 years jail and being dishonorably discharged. It was I took it very serious. And talked to his buddies, got a couple witnesses, and I know I put enough doubt in their mind. They acquitted him. And then I got another one after that. And then, so they saw that problem. They made me a prosecutor.
Yeah, this guy's very effective in the courtroom. We don't want him as an attorney for the defense. We want to convict these poor bastards. Yeah, no. Oh, man. You either got to laugh or cry at that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I ended up staying in the Marine Corps. I married a lady who I had known for 30 days. And by the time I got out of the Marine Corps, we had one child, another one on the way. Ronnie came back this gets into how we did the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
So
Your brother, Ron.
Ron comes back. So he would have been, by that time, he would have been about 23. He comes back and he meets our mother's best friend, Edie. Edie is 14 years older than Ron. She's our mother's best friend. The very first date they go on, she brings the 3 youngest of her 7 children.
Oh, wow.
She's divorced with 7 kids. And my brother just fell madly in love with her. Today, from that marriage, he has 7 kids. He has 27 grandchildren and 30 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. They fell in love. They got involved in the Church of Latter-day Saints, which is called Mormons in
Right.
upstate New York. And actually, part of the Mormon story was in New York State. Ronnie became a bishop in the Mormon church, and he did a bunch of funerals and weddings and sermons and all that kind of stuff. And then he ended up moving out to Utah. And we lived out there for about 40 years, and then unfortunately, E had a massive stroke in 2011, and she did not get better. She actually got worse, strokes. So she ended up, in a wheelchair, and Ron wouldn't let anybody else take care of her. He was a very devoted husband, and um, she passed in November 17th, I think it was, of 2017. So I
Right.
had talking to Ronnie on the phone. We always saw each other about once a year when they would come east, because half the kids lived on the East Coast, half of them lived out in Utah, and we'd get together and have a party, and my younger brother, Marty, and I would, we would get bubbly. And then Ronnie, we'd make fun of Ronnie because he was so boring, because he's a bishop in the Mormon church and he can't drink. And, he had that kind of a yammer going on back and forth. It was all good natured and taken that way, but that was kind of how the relationship. So we didn't really know each other very well, right, as adults.
Right.
And so when Edie died, I called Ron, and he was he was surprised and shocked, I think, by how much pain and grief he had. He was
Right.
there when she passed. He took care of her for 7 years. He's a bishop. He's a smart guy, but he had no idea how impactful the loss would be. Like something had been ripped
Right.
right out of him. And I didn't comprehend it either, but I could see it in his face and in his eyes. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail." Oh, that sounds like a good idea, my brain said. But no,
You know,
my
it
brain.
sounds like a good idea. Sounds like a good idea to me too. That's exactly what I have done many times in my life. Not the whole Appalachian Trail, mind you, but just confused at a turning point in my life and don't know which way to go. And I just need some time to myself in nature. I need to get out in the mountains and just put my backpack on and my hiking boots and just disappear into the mountains in the wilderness for a while and try to see my way clear. I've done that many times in my life. Yeah, so I understand it completely.
Yeah, you do. And then we did the same thing. What I found out later was Ronnie had done a lot of hiking. And like you just said, I would get to where everything would build up in me. I mean, being an attorney, I was a litigator, so I'm in court all the time. And I'm doing I do a trial a week or a hearing of some kind or whatever. And the stress would just kind of slowly build up. And I would go take a pack, like you said. You're obviously a big hiker, and I would go into the wilderness. The wilder, the better, for 2 or 3
Yeah,
days. I wouldn't take booze or anything with me. I would just go in there and try to cleanse myself. One time in the Smoky Mountains, in an area called Pisgah, which is part of where the Cherokees. It's called Cherokee, part of the Smoky Mountains.
right.
I went in there on a 3 or 4 day hike. It was forever wild, so the trails were not in very good shape. I ran into a bear, a black bear, Donald, that would not leave me alone. This was a good
Really?
experience. Yeah, this is a good experience, but I had run into before. Usually they just disappear, right? They take off real quick.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
one,
Usually animals, even bears, predators, they don't want trouble and they know humans are trouble. So for the most part, they run away. I've only had one bear encounter in all my years of hiking too. It's about 5, 6 years ago with a grizzly, and yeah, fortunately he just ran away from me and not towards me.
yeah, and they're nothing to fool around with. But grizzly bears are
That's right.
really bad. But no, I had a lot of experience with. There was one stretch in the Shenandoah Mountains in southern Virginia. We saw a bear every day for like 7 days in a row. I mean, it gets nerve wracking. But my big
Yeah.
experience with a black bear was in that section in Pisgah. I was probably 50 years old and by myself. I had a firearm, and it was in the fall. I actually got caught in snow. First day I woke up, my tent was covered with snow. And I think what happened, figured this out later, is that bear was getting ready to hibernate, and it was not. It was hungry. It was hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what a bear does,
That
of
that
course.
that is when bears are most dangerous,
Yep.
right? Is in the fall, or
Yep.
kind of October timeframe, because they are desperately trying to eat as many calories as they possibly can. And black bears will stalk you. So if you said that he was stalking you,
He was a
and
stalker.
absolutely, because he saw you as a big meal, and he needed a big meal.
Yeah. I was talking to a lady the other day. She was asking me questions about hiking the Appalachian Trail. And the first question she asked, what's the most important thing you can tell me about hiking the Appalachian Trail? And I said, if you see a bear, don't run, right? Because bears can't see. They don't see. Their vision is really bad. They smell way better than a dog. They can,
Yeah,
like, a million times, but it's unbelievable how well they can smell. But they can't
right.
see very well. So what they want, if you run, they assume you're food. And they
Yeah,
attack immediately. There's no hesitation, and you can't outrun a bear. They go 25
yeah,
miles an hour, and I knew that. And this bear was trying to make me run, and we ended up. Oh my God, Donald! It was so stressful because you can't show fear. Uh,
yeah,
you have to look them in. I look them in the eyes. I want them to know we're in a contest here. I'm not running. I'm not prey. Right? Not easy prey for sure. And that bear would do fake charges, and it would be drooling, and it would be, but it's so the dust is flying, the paws are flying, but he's not really moving forward very fast, right? He's just kind of a fake charge. You can tell right away.
yeah,
Well, I'm doing the same damn thing, right? I'm pumping my legs, I'm yelling, screaming, I'm looking right at it, and eventually I had my pistol in my hand, but I'm not moving forward very fast at all. I'm creeping forward, even though it looks like I'm running full speed. And we did that, I don't know how many times. And then he would back off, and then I would kind of back off. I couldn't go back because it would take me 2 more days than what I'm on my way out. I'm basically trying to finish this thing up. So I didn't want to go back.
right.
And then he would disappear. And then I thought, okay, fine, it's over. And then I would start on again. And the next thing I know, he's back. So this went on for like an hour and a half. I mean, it was, but I learned a lot of good lessons from that for sure about how to treat it. In the old days, they actually taught people hiking on the trails in our country. If you see a bear and it attacks you, get in the fetal position on the ground. That is
Yeah,
really bad advice.
yeah, I remember that. Well, especially with black bears.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, especially with black bears. With black bears, if they attack you, you should fight.
Yeah. Yep.
The other thing with bears is talk to them. Talk to them in a voice that has neither fear nor aggression, just in a kind of conversational tone. Mr. Bear, this isn't going to turn out well for either of us. Why don't you just wander? Just talk to them because they can hear really well. They can smell really
Right.
well and hear really well, but they don't see well. And the next thing is make yourself look really big because their eyesight is bad. They just kind of judge things by the size of them, and they don't want to mess with something that's big. So I take your backpack off and hold it up over your head, or at least hold your hands up and appear to be really big.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I did. I was jumping up and down like jumping jacks. But
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I was yelling at it. It was pissing me off big time to have to deal with this,
yeah.
you know. But anyway,
Hard to be conversational when a bear's trying to eat you.
yeah. I walked under a tree. This was in Georgia. So the Appalachian Trail goes from Georgia, Springer Mountain in Georgia to Cotton Mountain in Maine, which is in the very northern part on the north side of
Right.
the 100-mile wilderness, 2,200 miles long. It goes over 600 mountains, 465,000 feet of elevation changes. So that's almost 500,000 feet of up and down. And you're
Yeah.
going up and down all the time. Very,
Right.
yeah. When we first started out in Georgia, I have an artificial left knee in
Oh,
my left leg. My right leg is all beat up from the war and other things. It's a half an inch shorter than my left leg. My right leg is half an inch shorter and bone on bone. So I limp pretty badly. I did 26 marathons and it just wore that leg right down to,
wow.
yeah, my brother and I were both kind of weekend warrior types guys. We stayed in shape during the week, gym, running, and stuff like that. And then I always
Right.
do some kind of a contest in the, when it wasn't snowing, I was running all the time. And then in the winter, I did cross country skiing, pretty much all over North America, 50K races. So my point is that we were, even though we're not big men, we're both about 5'8", 170 pounds. We were solid. We were in good shape. We were used to strenuous stuff, which is very important. But I was still
Right.
shocked how hard it was when we first started out, even the mountains in Georgia. And you can go over 4 or 5 mountains in a day in Georgia. They're really close together and not very big once you get up to the certain elevation. And I would be praying, okay, when I get down this mountain, just give me 100 yards flat, please, or or at least 100 feet, and you get down the mountain, you got 10 feet, and then you're going up the next mountain. That
Up,
was a hard
down,
thing
up, down.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a hard thing to take, but yeah. So anyway, when I'm in the desert with Ronnie in January of 2018, I said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail." And I said, "Okay, well, when?" He goes, "March 22nd." Well, this year? Yeah, I said, "Yeah." Which was a good thing
So
because of our age. But anyway, I was like, "Oh, okay,
yeah,
well,
don't put it off any longer. That's the older you get. Someday I'm going to do this. Yeah, stop putting off that stuff because you don't know how many days you got left. So, yep. The first day of spring, right? Right after March 22nd.
well." There's a picture in my book which has 500 color pictures. I think it's like the third picture. Ronnie's standing inside of it must have been like a hay building or something way back in the day. It's not one of the shelters that hikers use because there's no built up benches where people sleep or any of that stuff. And he's standing there, and we're in a snowstorm. It's snowing, and Ronnie's standing inside this building. And I took a picture of him because you could see the look on his face, like, "Holy crap, what have I done?" But he would,
What the hell have I done? Almost like getting to Vietnam and saying, "What the hell have I done?"
oh yeah, oh, I could tell you some stories about that too. You talk about transformation and out of body experiences and stuff like that. I had a couple of those in Vietnam. I didn't really recognize
In
what.
in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, tell us one then, because that's something that gives you a totally different perspective on reality. Just a little break from the program to mention a couple of things. Firstly, if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a short comment. It really helps with the algorithm to find more people who would enjoy these interviews. Also, if you're interested in spiritual growth, you might be interested in my series of spiritual books. As a spiritual author and a former band director, I use my little "the band director" trademark in these books because I use music as a metaphor for life and the journey of becoming a musician as a metaphor for our spiritual journey. There are 3 books in this series. The Band Director's Lessons About Life is a book of modern day parables inspired by events from my teaching career. When you're working with kids, things naturally come up that we sometimes call teachable moments. Little events where you realize there's a bigger lesson happening right now than the alternate F sharp fingering on the clarinet that I was trying to teach. I started writing some of these little stories down and turning them into modern day parables. So, the Band Director's Lessons About Life has 50 little parables. It's a bit like a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. Each parable is about 3 pages long. Each begins with a story that happened at school, and then there's a reflection section that draws a spiritual lesson out of the events of the story. That is, it explains what the spiritual metaphor means. The Band Director's Lessons About Life is easy to read, makes a great gift, and expresses many universal spiritual principles in an easy to understand way. If you want to go deeper in your spiritual growth, I've also published a study guide to accompany the Book of Parables. It turns the Band Director's Lessons About Life into a year-long course in spiritual development. You will spend a week on each of the 50 parables. There is a deeper teaching about the meaning of each parable, reflection and discussion questions, especially helpful if you would like to use the study guide in a group setting, and a different meditation for each lesson. The third book in this series is a little book titled The Band Director's Pocket Guide to Spiritual Growth. This little book explains a simple 3-step process for putting your spiritual growth into high gear. You might also be interested in my 2-book series about the craziness in our world today. The first book, What the Hell is Going On? The Web of Fraud That is Enslaving Everyone and How We Can Escape to Freedom, is still the best big picture expose of what's really going on behind all this craziness. It includes a spiritual perspective of what's happening, which most books leave out. But it also looks at the economics, the philosophy, the psychology, the history, etc., of the many trends that just don't make sense and are, in fact, elaborate frauds. The second book in this series focuses more on solutions to the mess we're in. It's The Way Forward: How to Escape the Totalitarian Control of the New World Order and Heal from its Trauma. This book explains the 3 types of warfare we're being subjected to: spiritual warfare, psychological warfare, and 5th-generation warfare, and how we can sensibly respond on these 3 levels of body, mind, and spirit. You can learn more about all of my books at my website, www.cominghomespirit.com, because after all of us are on a spiritual journey back home to God. So that's cominghomespirit.com. You can also go directly to my Shopify page at cominghomespirit.myshopify.com, where you can purchase my books directly from me in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. I can now ship paperback books to the United States and Canada. If you're enjoying this podcast, I really think you'll enjoy my many books as well. Now, back to the program.
Well, I had a couple. One was I was a machine gunner on a helicopter, and the problem with the helicopters is that when things go bad, they go bad really, really quick.
And you're at the low elevation, and there's no time to recover, and it's only going one way.
Yeah. Well, the way they suck you into volunteering to be a machine gunner, because most of them are volunteers, right, is that they tell you, well, if the motor they're very delicate. They're like a butterfly. It's like putting a machine gun on a butterfly. It doesn't take a lot to knock a helicopter out, but so they tell us, well, if the motor shuts down, it gets hit or whatever, we can roto automatic. The blade will still keep spinning and it'll just come down slowly. Well, I can tell you for a fact that's not a thing. It doesn't work that way. They always end up on their side, and then they just crash.
Oh, really? On the side?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the weight and the center balance. I don't know how that works exactly. I
Oh,
was
probably
never
the
on one of
momentum,
those.
right? I mean, the rotor's going in a certain direction, and that will naturally cause it probably to go on one side.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the right side, is it?
That makes sense. Yes, because the way the blades move. I think you're right. It's been a long time. But anyway, I got in a fight with a prisoner over the pilot's pistol. And so I managed to get.
So is it like when you say prisoner, you're in the helicopter, you have a Viet Cong prisoner in there, and he tried to grab the pilot's pistol.
Yeah, everything was chaotic, and this happened. They weren't properly tied up. Their hands were tied in front of them instead of behind them. So when I got him on the helicopter and we took off because we were getting shot at, he pushed his blindfold up, and then he saw the pilot's pistol, which I had told him when that morning, hours before, when we first got on that plane. I said, "Sir, you need to move your pistol," and he told me that I could go have sex with my mother. And it was none of my business.
Not exactly those words, but we all get the point. Yeah.
You get the point, right? And so I heard him screaming in my headset. I'm trying to shoot the machine gun, and I turned to look, and I saw the prisoner going for the pistol. I unhooked and jumped in, grabbed the prisoner and the pistol at the same time, and we're wrestling. And the pilot decided that he needed to solve this problem real quick, and he's whipping it from side to side, trying to dump us both out, right? So He's trying to save the crew. Yeah, no, this so anyway,
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
yeah, thanks a lot. Well, the prisoner I got the pistol, the prisoner went out the one doorway, and then because of the way the thing was whipping around, I went out the other doorway with the pistol, and there was this moment, you know, Hoy, they always say just before you die in a traumatic fashion, there's always like everything, there's a your whole life flashes before your eyes, right? I didn't think that was a thing. That's actually a thing. I don't know how it works, but I was suspended in space, Donald, for like it's probably a millisecond, right? But it's like time just stopped because I know I'm going to die, right? And then the other thing I found out about myself is that when I'm in peril like that, and there's nothing I can do, I close my eyes. I don't want to. This happened to me on the
Seems
Appalachian Trail.
natural.
That's how I got hurt. I fell down a landslide. I closed my eyes because there's nothing I could do, and it was gonna hurt. It did hurt a lot. But in this situation, the other gunner saw what was happening, and he hit me. He was trying to grab me. He didn't grab me, but he hit me, and I felt this wicked pain. And then I opened my eyes, and I realized I was under the helicopter, and the letters weren't getting smaller because I'm on the skid.
You're
And
what? Sorry? You're caught
I'm
on
on
the skid?
I'm on the skid underneath the helicopter. Yeah, that's how I survived. I wouldn't be here. It was really hard to get back in the helicopter, but that moment was unbelievable. What your brain does. You were talking about it on another program about brain waves and all that. I had no idea, but yeah, it was like my whole life flashed before my eyes, and in that instant. And then I ended up on the USS Repose after a battle, and this one was even more powerful. So when I become conscious again, I felt like I was bathed in white light. I mean, it was so bright I could not open my eyes for quite a while. And I'm thinking, "Ah, I must be dead. I gotta be dead." And then I'm hearing noises. I'm hearing moaning, and I'm hearing gurgling next to me. And I started moving my hands around. I'm like, I'm in a bed. I'm on sheets. I mean, and I'm trying to open my eyes, but the white light is just so painful. I can't get my eyes open. And I keep hearing this gurgling. So I did a personal inventory of my body. I started where my feet and went up to my head, and I'm going, holy crap, nothing's broke that I can feel. I'm not shot. What had happened was I got dehydrated. I went into a coma. I went on a
Oh.
mission where we ran out of ammo, and that caused a lot
Yeah.
It was it was a
The
battle
weapon
went on.
becomes pretty useless.
Yeah, it was a
I
battle that went on.
sometimes say there's a special term for an unloaded gun. It's called a stick.
Yeah. Well, they have these things called bayonets.
Yeah, okay. So you got a spear.
Yeah, later on, I would have, later as a civilian, I would have very traumatic nightmares where I got gutted with a bayonet. So that was one of the horrors of the war that affected me in that transformational aspect of it. But anyway, in this occasion, I finally realized I'm on a ship because I could feel it moving around. And then I realized there's doctors and nurses down at one. I finally got my eyes open, and I'm not dead. And then I'm thinking, do I have $1 million wound? $1 million wound would be something bad enough that you can't fight anymore. You just go home. For me, it would be like if I had been shot in my elbow or something, they're going to have to, I'm disabled. They're not going to let me, I'm going to go home. And this gurgling noise. And so finally I rolled over where the gurgling noise was. And in the bed next to me was another Marine, and his whole head was swaddled in cotton, like it looked like a basketball, only it's huge. And the only thing I could see is his black eyes and this big ball of cotton with blood and stuff pouring, dripping from one end of it. And I look at him, and he's gurgling, and his eyes are flashing, and I realize he's trying to talk, but he can't talk for some reason. And I go, hey, man, you got $1 million wound. And then he really got upset. His eyes are flashing. He's gurgling louder and louder. And I just laid back on my back, and I looked at the ceiling. I thought, you stupid bastard. He didn't have any lower jaw. He's going home all right. He does not have a lower jaw.
Wow.
Yeah. And so a couple days later, I'm back in the jungle, and it changed me because I realized there's nothing I could do about anything that was going to happen. And it took away a little bit of that lower level of fear and anxiety we were always in about something's going to happen and it's not going to be good. And we don't know what it's, you're walking around very anxious all the time. And I sort of got it to a different level of, okay, not a damn thing I can do about it. I'm just going to do the best I can. And if I don't make it, I don't make it. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. So it did affect me that way. Those are a couple, war is hell, man. It just is.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when I came back, I was married. I was in law school, I think. And then the nightmares came and I had the first one, oh my God, this is so bad, Donald. So I'm married. I got kids. I'm working part-time because the GI Bill didn't pay even the tuition at Syracuse, paid most of it, but not all of it. So I'm working 3 jobs and and some of my friends are not doing well and they'd be talking to me once in a while. And I'm thinking, geez, I seem to be fine. I'm get my degrees. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm married. I bought a house. I'm doing all this stuff. And then the first night I had the worst nightmare. I had a night. I'm back in Vietnam. I was absolutely convinced at that moment I'm in Vietnam. I'm in a hell of a battle. We're getting our ass kicked. And then all of a sudden I'm holding my guts and I'm sitting on the ground and I'm trying to put them back in me. And I realized I'm done. I can't. There's no way I can survive this one, right? The miracles are over. This is it. I'm done. And I'm screaming, and all of a sudden I'm bathed in white light again. It always has to do with white light. And I open my eyes, and my wife is laying on the floor over by the bathroom, and she just flicked the light up. And I realized I'm not covered in blood. I still swear I could smell gunpowder, and I can smell the gore. Well, there is real gore because I have voided myself, and my bed is full of my manure and urine. And my
Oh
wife
my
and I are
goodness.
looking at each other, and I'm like, and we both knew, you're not all right, Rand. You're not. This has all been a big facade. And then the other nightmare I would have was, believe it or not, falling out of a helicopter. And those two terrorized me for quite a while. And then I realized that if I used a little bit of the juice, spiritus that comes in a bottle, Latin for alcohol is the word spiritus. Can you imagine that? Because see,
Yeah.
I didn't believe in God.
Yeah.
That first battle in Vietnam, I'm like, I'm done with that. There can't possibly be God, or this would not be happening to my friends.
Right.
Yeah. So Ronnie, on the other hand, was always a very spiritual man. And then when I got into my recovery program at right beyond the age of 65, I developed a relationship with a higher power. I had to come to the realization that there was a power outside of me because obviously I couldn't keep myself sober. I didn't know that
Right.
alcohol was a disease. I thought it was some kind of a defective character of mine that somehow all these things I could weather the storms and do all these things. And then I could not stop drinking at the end. When I started, I couldn't stop. Well, alcoholics metabolize alcohol differently. Normal people, we create an excess of acetone. It's a pretty complicated chemical.
Really?
Yes. In 1957, the
I didn't
American
know that.
Medicals, yeah, yep. It's a very complicated, it's like a 12-step thing that happens in our bodies for alcoholics, and they end up with an excess of acetone. Normal drinkers, when they get that excess of acetone in their they stop. That's when they get that feeling a little bit queasy. I don't want to feel like this. The buzz is no more fun, and they stop, right? What it does to alcoholics is it creates that sense of thirstiness. I'd be on a 4 or 5 day jag and I can't stop it. I'm thirstier than I was when I started, and I was impossibly thirsty when I started. And it comes from that metabolism unique to alcoholics. And so that's why in 1957, believe it or not, the American Medical Association declared alcohol a disease, because it really is a disease.
Okay.
But I came up in a program. It's a 12-step program for alcoholics who like to remain anonymous. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and we have a tradition of not running around bragging about it. So we don't give it a bad name if somebody relapses, type of thing. So I have to honor that
Yeah.
tradition. But I'm very, very involved in it. I'm still helping men every day. I went to a meeting this morning. Changed my life. That's why my book is called A Spiritual Passage, because I describe in there how the process I went through in this 12-step program to get sober and how it changed my life in every way.
Right.
And my brother was always spiritual, but we both had spiritual experiences on the trail too. And so it was definitely a life-altering, extremely difficult adventure, but I'm so happy we did it.
Thank you very much, Rand. At what age were you when you kind of went through the 12-step program and were finally able to kick alcohol?
Well, I was 65 years old when I started the program because I realized my drinking was getting out of hand. And I actually ended up retiring because I had a great career as a litigator. Some of my friends knew I had a little propensity to drink too much once in a while, but I never drank at work or anything like that. But I would drink at night mostly to keep those damn nightmares away and for other
Right.
reasons eventually. But you get addicted to it and it takes over. So, because of my refusal to believe in a higher power, oh my God, I ended up in hospital several times on suicide watch. To this day, I don't know what happened that I got there. So I got completely out of control. And finally, I went and sat on a guy's front. I've been on a 10-day air vodka vacation. I just wanted it to end. I was totally lost and so the problem was it's Saturday morning and the liquor store opens at 9 and it's like 6:30. So I went and sat on a guy's front doorstep in Syracuse, New York, just walking around drunken. I was going to get a gallon of vodka and finish the job. That was my thought. And the owner of the house came out. He was going to go fishing. Looked at me. I'm sitting on his front stoop. His name was Billy Cook. I can tell you his name now because he's not with us anymore, but he came over, sat down next to me, and looked at me. And I must have stank to high heaven. I had voided. I was a wreck, Donald. I was a total piece of manure. And he just looked at me and said, "Oh, I know you. You're just like me." And he took me to the hospital. He had been in that same program I was in for 30 years. First time he walked in, he didn't believe in God either. And he walked into his first meeting, and the old guys put their arms around him and said, "You stick with us, kid. You'll be all right." He never drank again. Most spiritual man I ever met. And he taught me how to be a spiritual man. When I got out of the hospital, we went to a meeting, and after the meeting, he looked at me and said, "Rand, you need to pray to that God you don't believe in." And I started to balk. And he said, "Or you'll get drunk again." And I just looked at him and I said, something inside me changed at that moment
Right.
because all of a sudden I had a total willingness. Something in me flipped. It twisted, it turned. I don't know how it happened. I just looked at Billy and I started crying. I said, "Billy, I don't know how to pray." We got on our knees in the parking lot. We did what we call the third step prayer. I offered myself to God, relieve me of the bondage of myself and take away my difficulties with alcohol. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's basically what he taught me that and a few other things. And I've been doing it every day, every morning, usually way before daylight. And I have 12 years now. May 6th, I had 12 years. And it just changed my whole life. But I had to do a lot of other things too. It's a 12 step. And he taught me, not only did he teach me how to be a sober spiritual man, he taught me how to help other men. I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea. And after I had finished the program, the 12 steps in basically 13 months, a young guy walked up to me after a meeting and he said, "Will you be my sponsor?" I'm like, my brain is screaming, "Donald, you're not ready." I mean, I've only got a year, right? So I told the kid, "Come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it." That's what Billy always did because people were asking him all the time, right? But I needed to go talk to Billy because he's going to tell me I'm not ready, right? So I go and talk to Billy, I tell him what happened, and he goes, "Oh, mister, that's fine. That's good. Go for it, Rand." I go, "Billy, you're supposed to tell me I'm not ready." And he goes, "Oh, you're ready. You got a lot of bad experience.
Yeah.
And now you got a year of good experience." He said, "You'll be fine."
Yeah.
And he knew
It's,
if I said,
it's that way with all teaching and with all helping others. I mean, if we were to try to wait until we had everything figured out or wait until we were perfect, we would never help anybody.
that's
We
right.
would never teach anybody. But it's you're all of us. We're far better teachers when we're still close to the problem,
Right.
that we're trying to overcome.
Yep. Well, he knew. I mean, the first two guys I helped, they didn't make it, but I stayed sober. And it's a tough business. It really is. If they're not at their bottom, then you can't help them. You can try, but you can't help them. One
Yeah.
of the things I learned pretty quickly was if I want your recovery more than you do, that's probably a problem. You've got
Yeah.
to want it at least as much, if
Yes.
not more.
Yeah.
But and I was at a meeting a few years ago. I was feeling a little bit down because I'd worked with a couple guys that disappeared, and I always take sponsees to a meeting. We went to a meeting, and I knew the guy that was leading the meeting was one of my sponsees, and I'm sitting there, and the leader's there. He's got a sponsee sitting next to him. I got the guy I brought with me. There's a guy on the other side of him that's my sponsee who had brought a sponsee. I looked on the other side. There's another one of my guys with a sponsee. And then I look across the room a little while later because it was packed. There's like 40 people in there. And they go, there's 5 people that I've helped here. And there's 4 men at least that they're helping. And then I realized this does work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I wrote about that in the book because it was so profound in my life. I was 4 years sober when Ronnie and I did the trail. I could not have done that if I hadn't been sober, for sure.
Right. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And we
Do
had
you have a
others.
copy of your book? Can you hold it up to the screen there? So Rand has written a book about his travels, how this was a spiritual passage, is
Yep.
describing and telling the story of this 22-mile hike along the Appalachian Trail and how this, and it is I find this every backpacking trip I go on is a spiritual experience, is a spiritual journey. Uh, not not necessarily dramatic. I mean, I don't have out of body experiences or anything like that, but this is part of our journey. It's the little transformations every day that we make in overcoming whatever the daily problems are. It's all these little choices that add up. I often say it's like developing our conscience. We develop
Right.
our conscience in the little choices we make for good or ill every day.
Yep.
In conversation, we can choose to say something kind or something unkind. What choice do we make? Right. And
Right.
and and it kind of takes you gradually into different directions. Do you start responding with sarcasm to the people around you, or do you choose to respond with kindness and understanding? I mean, it takes your whole life, your whole personality, your whole kind of trajectory in not only your spiritual life but your physical life into different directions, all based on little choices we make every day.
Right. Yeah. And every day I realized early on I was never going to walk this way again.
Yeah.
So Ronnie was kind of marching with his head down, like, I just got to do this. And he was a lot fast. He would usually be done way before me. And I was more like, I'm never going to come this way again. And I
Yeah.
took 5,000 pictures. There were a lot of days Ronnie didn't take any, and I would just go out, I'd see something, go, "Oh my God, look at that." And I would take a picture, and then I'd
Yeah.
walk around the corner and I go, "Oh my God." And then I would think one step at a time, just one step at a time. Because otherwise it's too much, right? And I broke it down into little pieces, and it was just amazing. So in the book, I described Ronnie was really good about where we were, how far we went, what mountains we went over, stuff like that. I was more about the pictures, the trail names of the hikers and stuff like that. And so it's in a journal. Somebody could actually vicariously hike the Appalachian Trail by just reading my book. It tells you each day where we went from and to, and there's usually at least 4 or 5 pictures that shows you what we saw that day. So
Yeah.
you could vicariously buy my book, hike the Appalachian Trail, and you would see the pictures and you would hear the stories. There's a lot of funny stuff in there too that happened. That could go on for hours. But there was an Oriental guy that was in our bubble. You get in a bubble with hikers. You know about this, right? When you're going the same
Yep.
place, and and then if there's people, then you fall out and you're in another bubble, right? They get behind you or they get ahead of you, and that's it. And this kept running into this Oriental guy, short, kind of like a samurai warrior. I swear he was wearing the robes. He had the man bun. He could have had a sword in there. Who the heck knows? Full pack.
Yeah, the big samurai sword.
Yeah, and he was stocky, handsome guy, really nice, very friendly. His name was Half Slow. I don't know where he came up with that. So one day,
Yeah, it's probably a fake name. He
oh
probably,
yeah. Well, mine was Rand Bow. That Ronnie gave me that. Ronnie's was attitude indicator. Ronnie was a commercial pilot, right? He was mostly hauling freight, not people, and AI is an instrument. It's an attitude indicator. It tells you what position the plane is on the horizon. So if you're in clouds and stuff, you can, stay
yeah. When you
fly.
can't see the horizon. Yeah.
Yeah. So Half Slow, I don't know, he came up behind me. He goes, Rambo, let me help you. Let's hold my hands and I'm going to pray for you to take away the pain in your knees, because he knew I was struggling, right? So we're standing there holding hands, and there's a few hikers going by, and he's praying, and like for 10 minutes. And then I hear him say something Shakespearean. I can't remember exactly what it was now, and he says it, and I go, I realize he's quoting Shakespeare. And I go, well, Half Slow, I think I'm getting a little embarrassed that we're standing here, and people are walking by. So like that. I feel good. We're okay. He said, okay, good. And so we let go and go on. But my knees felt a lot better. It was amazing. I go, holy crap, that actually worked. I don't know what he did, but
There you go.
stuff like that, little stories that were just amazing. The people were amazing, for sure. Yeah, and there's lots of pictures of them too in there, and the names of the mountains and critters and snakes and all kinds of stuff. Flowers. I try to take pictures of pretty much everything.
That's great.
Yeah,
Because every moment is precious. And in a situation like you were in, where you realize, okay, I'm in my 70s. I'm doing this 2,200-mile hike of the Appalachian Trail. This is the one and only time I'm going to be having this experience. And I'm going to try to enjoy and appreciate every single individual moment of it. And
yeah,
that's, the attitude that we really should have every moment of our life and everything we do.
that's
Right?
right.
Because that's living in the present moment and appreciating the joy, the pleasure, or the sadness, the struggle, whatever is in this present moment, knowing that I will not pass this way again. However repetitive and regular our days seem to be, we will not have this moment, this day ever again.
That's
And
right.
appreciating being in the present moment. Great spiritual lesson, Rand.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely, Don. You got it. You understand. Yeah. It was an amazing experience. It was very hard, but every night I fell down every day. I broke 4 hiking sticks. They're not designed to hold all your weight.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. You know that for sure, right? You got to have 2 of them. Even then you got it. But um
I don't like them. I see lots of hikers basically with ski poles. Is that what you're talking about when you say a hiking stick?
well, they're hiking poles. Yep.
Yeah, the hiking poles, but they're kind of like ski pole. I'm a long time avid skier, right? So I think, oh, they look like ski poles. You know what? I've tried having something like that. I don't like it because it it throws your natural balance off. You're trying to kind of balance with 4 legs sort of instead of 2, and that's not how our bodies are designed to work. So I don't like them. It distorts my your balance gets better as you focus on it, carrying a weight. Because first of all, you're carrying a lot of weight on your
Yeah.
backpack. And
Right.
so that changes your balance, right? So, but your body adjusts to it.
It
You do
does.
fall. You do
Yeah.
fall. I fortunately on my last trip, I did not hurt myself in any significant way in my falls. I fell in soft places, or one time I slipped on a wet rock trying to cross a stream, and that so my kind of shins hit rocks and stuff. It hurt a little bit, but it wasn't serious. A couple of years ago, I did have a quite a nasty fall. Fortunately, I was on the way out, only about an hour from the end of the trail. But yeah, I did smash my legs up, and my elbows kind of went over on a slope, and I went ass and tea kettle down a rocky slope and scratched myself up pretty badly. But hey, there's risk.
Yeah,
That's
there is
part of
risk.
the risk you take. There's risk in living every day and
Yeah.
whatever.
I couldn't have done it without the hiking poles, to be honest with you, because it took enough of the weight off my knees. You're transferring about 25 to 30% of the weight by using the poles if you use them correctly. So for me,
Okay.
it really helped a lot. But there were
Right.
people on the Appalachian Trail that were trying to do the whole thing without poles. But I found it to be very helpful, and
Okay.
but even so, I mean, it was astonishing because I fell down. Usually it was late in the afternoon and I would start staggering around, just the whole fatigue thing. And I came down off of Killington Mountain. I did 13 miles in one day in Vermont, including climbing Killington Mountain, which is that's a real mountain. It's 5,000 something feet. And I got up there. There was two hikers up there, and they were both doctors. So they took pictures of me and like hold my poles up like, yay, look at me, victory and all that, right? So I left before them and I got down and I'm finishing up the hike and it's later in the afternoon. I'm in a pretty bad section and I slipped and fell in a place where there was a whole bunch of boulders. But there was a little tiny piece of grass. And I managed to, when I went, I realized that was the only spot I could go and survive this,
You
right?
aim for the grass.
I
Yeah.
aimed for the grass, and when I did, I heard this scream, like, yeah! And I fell, and the next thing I know, those two doctors were right there. They saw me fall, and they thought I was dead for sure. So they raced up there to help me out or figure out what was going on. And when they looked and saw me laying on the ground, they, oh, you are the luckiest son of a gun on the planet, right? But we thought you were dead for sure. But the funny part was, too, I don't know what your experience is, but so we're hiking. It seemed like if you could average in the mountains in a mile and a half, you're doing good. I mean, in regular hiking, even today, I hike 7 miles a day. I walk. I could still do 2.5 miles in an hour, but in the mountains, you just can't. It's not
Yeah.
possible going up and
Yeah.
down and everything. So by the end of the day, I would be exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, and so much pain. And then I would sit down. I had a little collapsible chair and I would sit down and then I can't move. Everything just tightens right up, right? Yeah, I would crawl in the tent, lay on the sleeping bag, and end up falling asleep. And it took me a while. I usually only sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. And I've always been that way.
Really?
Yeah. But on the Appalachian Trail, however many hours I hiked, that's how many hours I slept.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, so I go to bed thinking, there's no way I can do this tomorrow. It's just too much pain. And then I sleep good and I wake up in the morning and I go, oh, I feel fine. It's amazing
Okay.
how the body can heal
Yeah.
itself and like
Yeah.
that. I mean, we went
Yeah.
33-day stretch, 23-day stretch. Most people take a day off. We couldn't do it. Us
Yeah.
old
That's
guys,
because it's really helpful for your body to take like every 4 or 5 days, just take a day off when you don't hike.
yeah.
Particularly in a long hike like that. So it's really hard on the body to not have a day off once in a
Yeah,
while.
we didn't do that. We're taking tomorrow off, and tomorrow would come, we'd be sitting there in our little chairs and stuff. At 8 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, we'd be looking at each other. We're gonna sit here all day? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And
I
we would
feel
just,
okay.
yeah, we just think,
Let's
it's,
go a little bit, and then you start going and you do a regular day. Yeah, I know exactly how
uh,
it happens. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
When I was younger, when I was a teenager, we used to plan on um, being able to travel 2 miles an hour plus an hour for every 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So that's kind of how we would, plan our day. Can we get to such and such a point? Well, let's see. Look at the topographic map. How many, roughly how many vertical feet are we going up? How many miles is it? And yeah, we could get there, or no, we can't get there. But now that, like you say, now that I'm older, I can't go that pace anymore. So I'm much slower, and probably 1.5 miles an hour. That's probably about what I end up doing too. Now that I'm
Yeah,
older.
that's what I averaged. Ronnie was a little bit quicker than me, but yeah.
Do you have any, Dan? Do you have any final words of spiritual wisdom, summing up your life of struggles and nearly being killed in Vietnam many times, and being able to finally kick the alcoholism?
Yeah, I'm hoping that my book, one of the reasons I named it A Spiritual Passage, is that people would be inspired by it to maybe have a little better life than they think they can. And my mantra is one step at a time. I mean, if I had gotten up every morning and go, we averaged 45 to 50,000 steps a day. I have a little Fitbit thing I wore. That's incredible. That doesn't seem possible. But 1 or 2 steps at a time, and you can do anything. I'm hoping that, I know it has inspired some people, older people. I'm in that age now where a lot of my, people are getting old. They're not doing well. And a lot of them just give up. It's amazing to me that I'm still writing. I walk 7 miles every day, doing my writing thing and my recovery thing, which takes 2 or 3 hours a day. I mean, I'm living life to the fullest. And I'm hoping it will inspire people. Look, all right, I used to golf or whatever. Well, I could still go out and putt-putt golf or something. And just one step at a time, get off the couch, get dressed, go outside, go to the putt-putt place, pay the guy, go have a little fun. Everybody's out there laughing because you're slow. Okay, fine. But I'm having a good time. I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Right.
Just enjoy life. And I think it has inspired people. I had a host after the program. We talked for quite a while, and he was telling me about his dad was a police officer, but he wasn't working because of his drinking, and he was really worried about him. And I said, well, I'll send him a book. He said, really? And I said, yeah, but just give me his address. And he goes, I don't know. So I didn't hear from him. And then about a month later, he emailed me. He said, okay, here's my dad's address. You send it to him, but don't say anything about me. I don't want him to know it's coming from me, right? So I autographed the book and put on a hope your difficulties get easier, happy trails, sign my name to it and send it to him, right? Not a word about anything. And figured that was it. About 6 weeks later, I got one email from this guy, the police officer, and he said, I don't know why you sent me this damn book, but I really liked it. I'm going to do something different.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
We don't know, do we?
No,
we
we
never
don't
know what good might come from a little good deed we do. And yeah, sometimes nothing comes of it. Sometimes good comes of it that we never hear about it. And once in a while, good comes of, and we do hear about it. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think a lot more
that's another, especially in Hinduism, there's that principle that, like, we're responsible for what we do, not for whatever good may come of it or may not come of it. That's on other people and whatever. It's kind of once we do a good deed, it's out of our hands and we don't know. And we're not responsible for the outcome of that. We're only responsible for what we do.
Right.
For us to do good.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. We help people a lot more than we know, and I don't ever talk about it as much, don't go running around. I'm not trying to help people I'm trying to help people because I want to help people, especially people who are struggling with it, because I've seen so many transformations. Your whole program is about transformation. I see it every day. I see people coming in, total wrecks, family destroyed, lost their job, don't have a place to live. 2 years later, they're helping other people. They got a fantastic job. Their family's been reunited. Not always, but a lot of times. I mean, I see people change their whole lives. And that's what you're trying to do with your program, right? In a way, absolutely. And we have no idea, like you said. But I will guarantee you're helping more people than you know. for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rand, it's been an absolute joy to have this conversation with you, and I wish you all the best in your journey and with the good works that you continue to do, and may God be with you all the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.